level. I was the archery person at the sportsman show, and I had to show the people which part of the arrow was the front, and not to shoot them while I was up collecting the bullets off the targets. I taught nature studies at summer camp. I taught pyromania. That was called tripcraft, and it was how to light a fire. And I did have a nightmare for years that these little boys that I had taught how to light fires were going to go home and set fire to their parents' garages. So successfully had I taught them. My dad was known as one-match Atwood among the woods, he said, because he was an accomplished bush person. And it was his, I shan't say boast, because Canadians aren't supposed to boast, but he let it be known that he could light a fire with one match under any circumstances. And I never saw him fail. I taught drama. Didn't know that, did you? I taught how to make a toad on a cake with icing. This can only be learned by the laying on of hands. But to show the people. The internet is no good for this. You may ask yourself, under what circumstances would I wish to make a toad on a cake? It was one of my rewards for the Nature Studies program. A little later, I got professional teaching jobs. My first one was at the University of British Columbia in 1963, where I taught the survey course. I was very low down on the totem pole there. I taught the survey course from Chaucer to T.S. Eliot in tiny whistle stops of incomprehension. And I taught my favorite grammar to engineering students. At 8:30 in the morning in a Quonset hut left over from World War II. And you may think that's funny, but the engineering students and I actually got on pretty well, as long as I could present it to them as a problem to be solved. I like to solve problems. So I gave them little exercises. I made them read Kafka's parables, useful to them. Surrealism is useful to engineers. And I got them to write similar kinds of conundrums and parables and paradoxes, and then we would look at the grammar of that. So that was actually pretty good. I was at my wit's end. I had to think of something. It was during that year that I did my only ever smoking. And I did that smoking because I had to mark my first set of essays. And I thought, I have to either smoke or drink to get through this. And if I drink, I'll get so drunk I won't be able to mark them. So I smoked. I was not cut out for it. I coughed a lot, and I had to give it up, but it did get me through that first batch of essay marking. I was a harsher person in those days. I think today I would be more kindly. I just saw gentlemen prefer blondes on the plane, and I would suggest that they watch that movie so that they would not say a person such as I. Yes, teaching through movies, very good. My second teaching job was at Sir George Williams University, now part of Concordia, in 1967-8, and I taught Victorian literature and American Romanticism, and I taught it to two kinds of people. In the daytimes, I taught it to 18, 19-year-olds who were there because their parents said so, and they really didn't have any clue. as to what they were supposed to be learning. And in the evenings, I taught the same thing to returning students who were grown-ups. And that second bunch was much more lively, combative, argumentative, and passionate about what they were learning. And to both groups, I taught George Eliot's Middlemarch. And the kids said, "We don't like this novel because the people in it make mistakes. They marry the wrong people. They choose the wrong careers. They mess up, and we're not going to do that." The adult student said, "This is the best novel we've ever read." Because the people in it marry the wrong people. They choose the wrong career paths. They mess up. It's just like real life. So I had a good time doing that, and at the end of it, my American Romanticism students gave me a button that said, "Moby Dick is not a social disease."